All right. Hey, everybody. It is Chad. It is Brittany. And welcome to another week of Master Your Move. Obviously, we work with people that are looking to purchase in the next 1 to 5 years. So if that is you, you're definitely in the right spot here. If that is your goal, our goal is to help you, provide you more value than you get anywhere else online. And our transparent goal is let you get to know, love, and trust us, so we can help you with your individual wealth, because that's what we believe in. Everybody deserves, obviously, to be successful. And if you've applied these things that we're giving you for free and you execute them, we'll be able to help you far, far much more. So let's do this here today. We have a nice guest with us as well, Brian. So we'll introduce him here in a second. But each week, we provide valuable content we help you will find valuable. If you're ready for changes, type wealth down below, because we live in the greatest country that allows that. And so if you think that's not possible, that's not true, because there's more wealthy people in America than anywhere in the world. And if you make $30,000, you are wealthier than more than 90% of the world.
True.
World, not America, world.
True.
Okay, so put that in perspective. I forget it, like 50% of the world lives on like $2 a day. So anyway, you're in the right spot. So with that said, I will hand this off to my trusty sidekick, Brittany, and she will introduce Brian, our guest here today.
Okay, so I just want to share a little story. Brian actually reached out to me. I don't know how he found me, but he found me, and we did a little podcast together. So he has a YouTube channel that he runs, that he shares podcasts on regularly. So what is your YouTube channel, Brian?
If you go to Brian at brianearnold.com, then you can see all the different channels that I have, and then it's just Brian E. Arnold on YouTube. But if you go to Brian E. Arnold, you'll see my Mindset Daily, you'll see my real estate podcast, you'll see my Black Wealth Experience podcast, and any other content that I have on there, whether it's living trust related kind of stuff like that. So it's easier to just go straight to my website and then click from there than it is to go searching for it. But if you find Brian,
sorry. At the end, we'll have him share his information again. So what I thought was super cool was he actually reached out to me, and his question to me was like, hey, look, would you mind hopping on a podcast with me, just sharing, like kind of what you're doing in your business so that we can help other agents. Real estate's one of the hardest jobs to keep. We have a really high turnover rate. And so I was like, yeah, absolutely. Right. So we got talking, and he started talking about things that he does. And one thing that anybody on this group has heard Chad and I talk about over and over and over and over is generational wealth. And as Brian was telling me about the things that he does, he actually mentioned generational wealth, which kind of caught me by surprise, because it's not something that you hear everybody in the industry talk about. To help a client build generational wealth, it takes a lot of time and effort. You have to really think outside of the box, where a lot of people, think about what they can do today, right now, to help you get into a home so that they can get you in and move on to the next person. And like we always talk about, Chad and I work really hard to see, you and your future goals is kind of a large picture, and how we can help you create generational wealth, right? Because we want to work with you from today till the rest of your life, including your family members. And we want to be part of that. We want to be part of your story, right? That's the things that totally fills Chad and I's bucket. And then it was great listening to Brian say that, because I was like, oh my gosh, it's like he's like us. So he started talking about things that he's done with his actual clients to help create generational wealth. So I asked him today if he would just hop on and share some of those experiences, because I know there are some people in this group that really think that there's no options out there, right? I'm not rich. I don't have it all together. I don't have a perfect credit score. I only know how to rent. Everybody before me has always been a renter. And it really makes it feel kind of like you just won't ever get that opportunity. And so we want you to know that you always have that opportunity, because you can do whatever you set your mind to, and we want to be part of that. But B, we want you to know that there are options that are outside of the box. So Brian, if you wouldn't mind just sharing some of your wins with us and things that you've done, helping your clients truly create generational wealth, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I would love to. This is so exciting. This is right where I want to be. This is the folks that I want to talk to, because we don't know what we don't know, right? We have this whole educational system that's out there that spends time teaching us a whole lot of stuff, but not about money. usually about how to be a consumer and how to continue to consume and then not be able to, increase your family. And so when I start thinking about this and I think about generational wealth and ways that we can do it, I just want to let, the listeners know that one, you can do this, two, you deserve this.
Absolutely.
And three, let us help you, because you don't know what you don't know. And we spend so much time of our time when we talk to like relatives or friends or family that may be in the same space that we are in that don't know either. So we'll go ask like our cousin about, what do I need to do to buy a house? And he'll say, oh, you can't buy a house. You don't have any money. You don't have myth number one, 20% to put down. That is the biggest myth of all time, is I have to have 20% in order to buy a house, because you don't. There are so many options that are out there to be able to do that. There are programs that I don't know if this is the best time in history to have programs that are available with down payment assistance than anything that I've ever seen in my life. We here, I don't know if you're in Colorado, wherever you're at, but every state has a different program. There's one I was working with somebody today that has $40,000 down payment assistant for a $400,000 house. So
Wow.
They're going to get $40,000. We're adding on another grant that's coming from a place called the ICU Project that is a $10,000 for women with kids. That's a $10,000 that she gets. And then she got another one called the Metro DPA program here in Denver, which is if you had a family member that lived in a red line district since 1938 till now, you qualify for $25,000. So we take that 40 and add 35,000 to it. She has $75,000 of money that is awarded to her to be able to move into a home that she now gets to pick. And she takes care of a daughter who is a special needs daughter that's at home, and she kind of gets to take care of her. So even location isn't the number one thing for her, because she can work all around. But everybody has their individual story. One of the things that I talked to Brittany about when we were talking about generational wealth is I do a lot of reverse mortgages. So I specialize in this thing called reverse mortgage, which is simply a mortgage that is for seniors that allows them not to make a payment on their house until they pass away. And they use the equity in their house to do it. And I can explain in more detail later, but I really love to talk about this area, because one of the things that I always talk to my clients about is, who is it that when you pass away that you want to have your house or not have your house, or the funding. And a lot of times, especially in the culture that I grew up in, I used to hear grandma say all the time, they're not getting nothing. I worked my whole butt off to get this, and they're not getting a thing. And then when you really unpack that, that's not what they want to say.
Yeah.
What they're saying is, I don't have any money, or I don't think I have any ability to give them nothing. So I'm just going to say it right now, they're not getting nothing. Because if they had their choice, they would want to help out their kids. But maybe even if it's not their kids, how about skip a generation and help out your grandkids? Now, I haven't met a grandma yet who doesn't want to help out grandkids. not yet, not a one. But what I'm finding out is there's so trillions of dollars in equity in homes that are there. And there are folks that have either their house paid off or close to paid off. And so one of the things we did, we had a lady, she had a house that had tremendous amount of equity in it. Here in Colorado, where I'm at, her house was worth $600,000. She bought it for $20,000, back in the 1970s. Continued to, get some different loans on. She owed about, $100,000 on it. We were able to take out in her reverse mortgage, $200,000. We took 80 of that $200,000, and we did some home improvements. So we fixed gutters, we fixed, cut down some trees that she couldn't afford, did something with the sidewalk that led up to her house. But then, she was saying, well, that's all I really want to do. And I said, she was 72. And I said, what do you think about this thing called generational wealth? She goes, I would love to be able to help out my family, but I can't afford to. Well, I said, with this loan, you're not going to have a payment on this money that we just took out. So what if we take out $120,000? And she told me she had 3 grandkids. And she said, I had 3 grandkids. What if we took out $120,000 and gave each of them $40,000 towards a down payment? She goes, I could do that. And I said, you absolutely could do that. That's going to change their future forever. Because right now your family has one house, yours. They're waiting at some point, you're going to die. And let's say it's in 20 years at 92. then they're going to sell your $600,000 house. They're going to pay off your $100,000. So they'll have $500,000 left. Well, in 20 years, it could be worth $800,000, $900,000. But just for this example, then they're going to take that $400,000 and do something with it. Most likely, if we haven't educated them, they're going to go spend it on their debt. They're going to spend it on some student loans. They're going to buy a couple cars. They're going to go on some vacations. And then 6 months to a year later, there's nothing left from that estate. And that's what happens. It's an estate. And in our country, it's about 2 generations that money goes, it passes through. So their kids and their grandkids, and then nobody has access to it after that. But I said, if you help these guys with their down payments, now you're controlling your inheritance. Instead of waiting for you to die and let them do what they want, you've now controlled that $20,000, $40,000 each, and you get to watch the equity grow in them houses for the next 20 years. So your grandkids, now you went from 1 house, now your family has 4 houses. And those 4 houses that they have, hopefully over the next 20 years, they'll maybe upgrade. So they have some equity, so they can now do the stair step thing where they, say, hey, well, this house has been great. Thank you for helping me, Grandma. I'm ready to get another one. So they sell that house with the equity and buy something a little bit bigger. Now, what if their parents do it for their grandkids? And then those grandkids do it for that grandkids. Now we have generations of folks that have used this thing in our country called equity, which is the #1 way to create wealth in our country, whether it's personal wealth or generational wealth, is through real estate. So that's one example. I'll let you guys talk because I have a couple more that I could definitely use.
Yeah. No. So I definitely want to hear more. I do love that though. Personally, for me, I have realized kind of what you mentioned. If you just give cash to younger generations, they typically don't use it correctly. They don't use it for investing into something that's going to create them a generational wealth that they can then bless the generation after them. And so I love that she made this decision to bless her grandchildren, but she's like, look, I'm not just going to give you cash. You can't just use it however you want. But what you can do is you can invest it into something that's going to create wealth for you. And hopefully you will continue this. And I think such an amazing thing, like in my own life, we have made that decision where I've told my kids, look, I will help you with anything that you decide to invest into yourself. You want to go to school? Amazing. I'll help you. You want to buy a house? Amazing. I'll help you. I will not help you with anything else. You will not get a wad of money from me to just blow it on whatever you want. It has to be an investment of some kind. Why? Because there's nobody that gets a large chunk of money from a family member that then invests it correctly. They all just blow the money on silly things like new cars. And, before long, it's like, oh, I blew through $400,000. I don't even know what I bought. I don't even know where I went or what I did. And then there's nothing for the generations after that, right? It stops at just that next generation. So I love that.
Yeah, so many different ways that you start thinking, I want my kids to have something. And even for me, I've told my grandkids, I want to give them all down payments for houses. And I have 13 grandkids now, maybe have some more. So I have to have some money put aside to be able to give them all down payments for houses. And I think of our education system, and don't get me wrong, education is super important. I want you to realize education is important to me. I have a doctorate. And so as a result of education, though, there's so many different ways to go to school. There's so many grant programs and loan programs that, whether it's student, I'm not just saying student loans, but there's so many ways. If you go to admissions and say, I want to come to school, please help me figure out how to go to school. In most states, there's somebody who's going to help you figure out how to do that and do it very inexpensively and get a degree. That doesn't happen to them getting a house. I would rather spend money on the #1 way that I know can create wealth for my kids and my grandkids. And I don't believe it's education. I believe it's real estate. And so I would rather give them the money for that at 23 years old and then show them how to get through the process of school than saying, I'm going to save up in this 529 plan. We have some legislation that we're proposing here in Colorado that even say instead of a 529 plan, which is the plan that you can save tax-free money for education for your kids, how about a 572 plan or whatever it is that says we can save up for a house tax-free so our kids can get that? Because that's what's going to create. If I have a 23-year-old and now they're 10 years later, they're 33, but they've been able to have a house this whole time instead of an apartment. And I think of 10 years, and I say this a lot, that let's say you're paying $2,000 a month in rent. That $2,000 in 1 year is $24,000. That same $2,000 in 10 years is $240,000 that you spent on rent. What if that same $2,000, because I helped my kids get into a house, went from, you know, that $2,000 to pay their mortgage payment? Now in 10 years, instead of me paying $240,000, maybe the equity's gone up $100,000 or $120,000 or $140,000. So you go in the opposite direction than the other direction that happens when you're doing rent. One other just real quick story. I had a gentleman, his wife passed away and they have kids. He didn't want to live in the same house and was really having trouble paying for the property taxes. And so what we did is we did the reverse mortgage on the new property he was going to. He sold his house and he was able to get a fourplex. And the fourplex has, you know, he lived in one of the units, and this can happen with whether you're doing it or not, but he didn't have a payment on one of those units. And those other 3 units, he rent out to his buddies for $2,500 a month. So now he went from not hardly being able to pay his taxes to now having a $7,500 a month cash flow that he now has coming in, and he only has Social Security income.
Right.
Now he passes away. Who inherited $7,500 of income every month? His kids, right? Or whoever he has on that. So he just supported by, you know, they lived in the house that they grew their kids in. Their kids were gone. Wife passes away. Now he moves into something that maybe a little bit smaller, but something he wanted to live in, you know, 1,700 square feet. He's living by himself. But that unit now has the $7,500 cash flow that he can now do. And because it was reversed, he doesn't have to make a payment. But if he wasn't reversed and did the same thing, you know, you're still making the payment on the whole complex, and there's cash flow that's coming through that because somebody may have a job. So that could be a primary residence. I have a guy right now who's trying to find a fourplex in Vegas so he can do some of the same things to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Another example.
That's funny. I think that you and Chad probably feel the same way about education. Chad and I have many discussions. They could lead to arguments about college and the importance of college. We definitely are very far apart on how we independently feel about that. So that's funny. You know, I think the reality is, though, is that somewhere along the lines, we forgot how to take care of generations after us.
Absolutely.
You know, we became very self-absorbed as a people, and we stopped worrying about what the lineage of our family is going to look like and how they're going to come out of things and what we're leaving behind for them. And for the past few, you know, decades, we've left messes for the people that are after us. And I'm glad that there are other people that actually see that and that are actually wanting to be a part of creating what generational wealth looks like, regardless of exactly how they want to do that. I think it's super important that we start really considering what does the world look like and how is it going to be for the people that are after us, because I think that changes everything. So I love that, you know, you want to create a tax-free option for saving for your kids' homes. I mean, that would be amazing if we were able to do that. You know, so I mean, what else can we come up with? What other ideas can we manifest so that we can help people? Or even like, you know, the single mom that you talked about, like how amazing is that? There's so many single parents that just don't make enough money, right? And they can't because they have to make sure that they're home at night for their kids or they're available after school or whatever it is. And it's like they feel so stuck because prices are so high, especially if they live in Colorado or Arizona. It's expensive to rent. It's expensive to buy. And so you have to start figuring out things. And, you know, everybody's plagued by, can I actually afford this or not? And that's something that Chad and I talk about a lot. And it's like, sometimes you have to live without all of those extras, right? Sometimes you have to get rid of the car that you have dreamed about your whole life, you know, but the payment is $850 a month. And it's like, sometimes you got to sell the car. Sometimes you got to stop. I always tease all the women, like, stop getting your nail and your hair done, like nails in your hair. Do you know how expensive that is? That's like, that's enough to add to whatever you're paying to rent to help you with the actual mortgage payment on a house that you like. You know, and so really it's like, making changes now and really pouring into your current situation so that you can make better changes in the future. And so what other things do you think that people can do that maybe they're overlooking on just like a daily basis or a monthly basis to help them put themselves in a position where they would be ready to buy?
Absolutely. There are so many, I mean, when you start thinking outside the box, you know, I have a family now that I'm working with that lives, one lives in an apartment. And then one lives in a house and they're both renting. And we kind of talked about what if we combined incomes,
Mm,
and they went and looked at a new build that we were able to get a down payment assistance for all four of them to move in and to just share this living space. Somehow we've decided in our country that we all have to live autonomously, but and we grew up together with the same siblings and stuff, and you know, but I'm saying this doesn't have to be for right now, you know, this doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. But what if you guys go into something right now for a few years, maybe it's 4 or 5 years that you now all live in this space together. You were willing to even think about renting together, but why don't you buy together? And so that can increase the income, use a down payment assistance to get in, and then maybe sell a little bit in 2 weeks. The other thing is is really looking at your finances and your money and what are you spending your money on right now? Because a lot of folks have extra additional income that they don't think they have, like eating out. You know how expensive it is. I went to McDonald's with my 5 grandkids last week because they were all, you know, 2 visiting California, the other ones, they went to play in the play place. And I don't even like McDonald's, but $50 later, $50 later, I can't, for 5 kids spending a $50 at McDonald's. I'm like, well, if I do that, like a lot of families do 2 or 3 times a week, you know, that is a big portion of a house payment. You know, Starbucks, our favorite place that we drink coffee. You know, and I'm not saying Starbucks is bad and it doesn't taste good, and because it does and it is good, but it isn't better than a house. You know, and I've sit down where homes were $800 a month. We're going to Starbucks. You know, that, you know, coffee a day is $800 a month at $6 a coffee, or 2 a day, or whatever that is. That is way too much money to spend on coffee unless you have that kind of a budget to be able to do that. You know, and I'm not saying don't ever go to Starbucks. Let's just say maybe only once a week instead of every single day. You know, those are the main things that I think people spend money on. I believe in vacations, and I believe in creating experiences and finding ways to save up for that kind of stuff. But the key is calling us and let's put a plan together. And I think that's where, you know, I'm trying to create this simulator now where people can go through what the process looks like and what are those down payment assistance and those things as a lender that I can say, hey, let's get you into something. And it might not be the exact thing you want right now. It's okay. You don't have to live in an $800,000 house for your first house. You can live in a, you know, a condo or live on the outside, you know, outside of town, but getting in, and then the conversation. And I think this is where sometimes we fall short, is we say, oh, I did the transaction. I didn't spend any other time. You know, you got into your home. That's great. What's next? Please call me in 5 years when you're ready. No, let's put a plan together of what you really want to do that's over time. You know, how do we figure out how to now do an investment property? There are loans out there right now that will allow you to get an investment property because you can use the income from the investment property to be able to qualify. So if you have some money, so let's say you save up for a down payment, this time it is that, say it's that 20% or 15% for an investment property, a duplex, or just a small home, you can qualify without your income. You don't need your extra income. Like, you don't have to have a better job or to make more money to qualify to now be able to buy that second piece of property. But if we don't talk about that at the beginning, folks aren't thinking, hey, what am I doing next? We just kind of stop and we got here. How do we move forward to that next piece of property? And I know you guys do an amazing job of doing that and getting people, but and maybe join a program like yours where there's, you know, hey, we're going to get some investor. You'll be the investor that now invests in a rental property so somebody can rent to own. You know, that is huge. You know, if that's the space that works. It may not be in your neighborhood in Arizona, though. It may be the investment property that is in Utah or Wyoming or somewhere that has a little bit less, you know, entry to get in, but still has those rental incomes that are able to do it. But if you don't have those conversations, and part of it is educating yourself about how money works, you know, understanding, you know, and I have some books and that kind of stuff that I can get to people that would be interested in. How do I look at what the next 5, 10, 15 years are? Because we usually spend all of our time in survival mode. You know, especially I think more so for renters than people who own homes. People who own homes are a little bit more comfortable to be able to think outside the box. people are renting are always, well, as a landlord, going to increase my payment. You know, is the person who's next door to me, you know, doing some stuff they shouldn't be doing, or, you know, they're always in this, I got to figure this out mode, or I'm spending $3,000 or $4,000 a month on it. And that's here in Denver, like downtown. Somebody's told me $4,400 a month for a 3-bedroom place to rent. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, where $4,400 could do if you can afford that. And I'll just kind of talk about in with this is there's folks that are getting into homes now with different programs. Even there's a place called Vector Bank that's here that I don't even get the lending in or the commission on, but they can go up to 105%. And a person just that I sent over to them got into a home for $800 last week. $800 got into is a $380,000 condo that they got into for $800. Tell me what apartment that you can get into for $800
Yeah,
to rent.
none. Not any.
And you're able to buy a house for less than it costs to rent where you're going to rent. And
Yeah.
that happens all the time.
Yeah, so unfortunately our time is up. That went by so quick today. Oh my gosh, such good information. So one thing I do want to say is I think for the general population, people are generally afraid to speak to us because they think that we're going to sell them something. And I just want to reiterate, we are not, none of us are in this to sell something. The only thing we have to sell is ourselves and the knowledge that we have, the experience that we have. And the one thing that Chad and I absolutely love is putting a plan together, and that now makes Brian as well. And so if we can help you put a plan together, even if it means that you're not ready to buy for the next 3 to 5 years, that's okay. We want to be able to sit down with you, create a plan, put something together so that we can help you make the moves that you want to make so that you can start to build wealth for yourself and hopefully leave some generational wealth behind. So if you have found this information helpful and you're ready to make changes, please put wealth in the comments below. We would love to connect with you. Brian, can you please tell us how they can reach you again, including your phone number this time?
Yeah, so if you just go to Brian at BrianEArnold.com is my email. My website is BrianEArnold.com. And my phone number is 720-287-1588. And I'm licensed in all these different states and happy to help you. But I'll put a plan together all day long for free to sit down with you just to help you figure out what you need to do. If something comes up, I do living trust as well. So if something comes up on the estate planning side and that you need just some questions answered that you don't want to use ChatGPT and hope that it gives you the right information to, please give me a call. I will be happy to help you and you know, refer you back over to Britney and Chad as well. Together, we want to make sure that you have a plan and can move forward. You can do this.
Absolutely do.
Before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. And if you have not friended or followed Chad and I on Facebook, please do so. We obviously want to build a relationship with you. We want you to see our content. If you have any questions or want more information about anything that Brian mentioned today, shoot us a DM and we will see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Great talking to you.